the Prince of Wales, the pride of the Royal Navy. They are both sunk by the Japanese in less than an hour. A fateful date, the end of Great Britain's dominion over the seas. The following day, in Berlin, the Führer goes to the Reichstag for a meeting of Nazi leaders. For 4 critical days, since Pearl Harbor and Japan's entry into the war against the United States, Hitler has been waiting in vain for Roosevelt to declare war on Germany. If Hitler sides with Japan, perhaps Tokyo will support him in Russia. The German generals, however, are far from enthusiastic. Ribbentrop, the foreign minister, has tried to dissuade Hitler, but Hitler declares war on the United States.
Deutschland, Italien und Japan werden den ihnen von den Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika und England.
We know what powers stand behind Roosevelt. It is the eternal Jew. I am grateful to the German people for designating me to lead this historic struggle that will determine the history of the world for the next 10 centuries to come. The British Prime Minister phones Washington. Roosevelt says we're all in the same boat now. This is the moment Churchill's been waiting for the last 2 years. Roosevelt had wanted to show his electorate that he'd done everything he could to keep the peace. The war has now become a world war, and Churchill now feels stronger.
What kind of a people do they think we are? Is it possible they do not realize that we shall never cease to persevere against them until they have been taught a lesson which they and the world will never forget?
Churchill severely underestimates the enemy. Hong Kong falls to Japan in just 17 days. General Yamashita, known as the Tiger of Malaya, sends Japanese tanks through the Malayan jungle. He captures Singapore, the pearl of the British Empire, a stronghold that was considered impregnable. Yamashita makes hundreds of prisoners line up in perfect order for an impressive and humiliating review. Yamashita indulges in a chivalrous salute for the Japanese propaganda crew. General Yamashita will be hanged for war crimes in 1946. General MacArthur, commander of US forces in the Philippines, which are now surrounded by the Japanese, is ordered by Roosevelt to escape so as not to be taken prisoner. When he arrives in Australia, he declares, "I shall return." MacArthur's soldiers are taken prisoner, 30,000 Americans with their old 1917 doughboy helmets, and an equal number of Filipinos, who set off for their internment camp 100 kilometers away. This is the Bataan Death March. One of the survivors, Sidney Stewart, recalls, "We marched for 10 days and nights without eating. We were constantly beaten. Those who could no longer go on were killed by the guards, who beheaded them with a sword." In just 5 months, Japan has destroyed the Allied forces in the Far East and conquered half of the Pacific. Tenuhukai Banzai. Long live the Emperor. A huge banzai resounds throughout the empire to celebrate Japan's version of the Lightning War. It reaches General Tojo and the Emperor, who deigns to make an appearance in public with his family. Germany first. Churchill and Roosevelt both agree on this strategy. Their primary objective is to defeat Germany. "We have to bomb it," says Churchill. He creates an air fleet commanded by General Bomber Harris. Harris believes he can win the war with his powerful four-engined Halifaxes and Lancasters. This strategy is criticized as being costly in terms of men and equipment, but it does begin to take its toll on German cities. On the 8th of March 1942, Essen is bombed, a way for Churchill to help Stalin. The city produces weapons used by the German forces in Russia. The Germans begin to measure the consequences of Hitler's policies. The Nazi regime descends into murderous insanity. Hitler, Goering, Himmler, and his assistant Heydrich begin to implement what they call the final solution: the extermination of Jews in Europe. It is further endorsed at the Wannsee Conference near Berlin in January 1942. That is why Heydrich has come to Paris to organize the rounding up of Jews in France. Their one-way trip to the gas chambers in Auschwitz